A man can live alone for years and still not know whether he is at peace or simply untouched. The apartment stays clean enough. The same cup dries beside the sink. One plate returns to the same cabinet. The chair across the table remains empty. But after a while, emptiness can stop feeling like an alarm and start feeling like furniture. I have mistaken quiet for healing before. Not because the wound was gone, but because no one was close enough to touch it. That is the dangerous part. The Bible never treats aloneness as a simple curse, and it never treats romance as a magic cure. Paul knew there could be a holy strength in singleness. Yet, in the garden, before shame ever entered the story, God still said, "It is not good that the man should be alone." Genesis 2:18. So the question is not merely whether a man has a woman beside him. The deeper question is what his aloneness is doing to his soul. Some men live alone and become wise, prayerful, steady, and available to God. Others live alone and slowly become sealed rooms, protected, efficient, emotionally unreachable, and quietly afraid of being known. So we have to look closer, because the truth about a man without a woman is not found in his relationship status. It is found in what grows inside him when no one is near enough to interrupt his self-deception. Truth 1: the empty table can become a mirror. There is a particular silence that settles over a man who lives alone. It is not always sad. Sometimes it is orderly. The shoes stay where he left them. The bills are paid. The refrigerator hums in the kitchen with the same few items inside. No one asks why he came home late, why he stopped calling people back, or why the same heaviness keeps appearing in his eyes. Life becomes manageable because no one is close enough to ask the second question. That kind of quiet can feel like freedom, but sometimes it is only freedom from being seen. The first garden scene makes this uncomfortable truth plain. It is not good that the man should be alone. Genesis 2:18. This was not spoken after Adam failed. It was spoken in paradise, before shame, before conflict, before rejection. The problem was not that Adam was weak or sinful. The problem was that human beings were not designed to become complete by staying enclosed inside themselves. A woman is not a decoration added to a man's life. In the Genesis story, she is a helper corresponding to him, a presence who stands face to face, not beneath his feet or outside his purpose. The deeper truth is that man was never meant to live without reflection, challenge, companionship, and shared vocation. He needed another human presence capable of answering him, seeing him, and drawing him out of isolation. But many men learn to treat aloneness as control. No emotional negotiations, no daily tenderness required, no one touching the private rooms of the heart. The empty table becomes a mirror, and after a while, he only sees himself. When a man lives too long without interruption, his preferences become law. He mistakes the absence of conflict for the presence of peace. I have seen how easy it is to call self-protection maturity. It can look responsible from the outside while slowly shrinking the inner life. The danger is not that every man who lives alone is broken. The danger is that a man can build a life where nothing ever confronts the parts of him that need to soften. He may become competent, but not connected, calm, but not healed, independent, but not known. A clean room can still hide a neglected heart. And when a man stops being known, he often starts becoming a version of himself that no one can correct. Truth 2: independence can hide a fear of need. There is a kind of man who says, "I don't need anyone," and at first it sounds strong. He fixes what breaks. He eats when he wants. He moves through the week with quiet efficiency. His calendar has work, errands, perhaps church, perhaps exercise, but very little vulnerability. He does not ask for help, because asking feels like weakness. He does not explain his loneliness, because explaining would mean admitting it exists. Sometimes the television stays on long after he stops watching, not because he cares about the program, but because the room feels less accusing when another human voice is inside it. But the Bible does not worship self-sufficiency. Ecclesiastes gives a painfully practical picture of companionship. Two are better than one, for if they fall, one will lift up his fellow. Ecclesiastes 4-9, 1-0. That wisdom is wider than marriage. It tells us that God built human life with the assumption that someone will sometimes fall. Not maybe. When? The question is not whether a person will need lifting. The question is whether anyone will be close enough to notice. A man without close companionship may begin to confuse privacy with strength. He keeps his pain neat. He folds it like a shirt and puts it away before anyone visits. He can talk about the news, money, doctrine, plans, and practical matters. But when the conversation moves toward fear, grief, shame, or desire, something in him steps backward. Sometimes men live alone because they are called to a season of singleness. That can be honorable. Paul speaks of singleness as a gift when it becomes undivided devotion to the Lord. 1 Corinthians 7:32-35. But there is a difference between consecrated singleness and defended isolation. Consecrated singleness prepares a man for connection. Defended isolation breaks his capacity for it. The fear of need often comes from old disappointments. A man learns that depending on someone can cost him dignity. He learns that affection can be withdrawn, that trust can be used against him, that being honest can invite contempt. So, he chooses a life where no one has enough access to hurt him deeply. It works, for a while, but the same wall that keeps pain out also keeps love from entering with any real depth. He may avoid heartbreak, but he also avoids the daily mercy of being helped, challenged, forgiven, and held accountable. His apartment may be quiet, but his soul becomes crowded with unspoken things. I know how easy it is to admire a man's discipline while missing the fear underneath it. Sometimes what looks like strength is only a wound that learned how to keep a schedule. A man does not become whole by proving he needs no one. He becomes whole when his need no longer humiliates him. And that requires a deeper courage than independence can provide. Truth 3. A woman cannot heal what a man refuses to bring into the light. Some people speak as if the solution for a man living alone is simple. He just needs a good woman. But the Bible is more honest than that. A woman can be a gift, but she is not a redeemer. Companionship can reveal a man's heart, but it cannot do his repentance for him. Marriage can place love beside him, but it cannot force him to become truthful. There are men who live alone and blame the absence of a woman for the disorder in their souls. They say they would be calmer if someone loved them, more disciplined if someone supported them, more gentle if someone understood them. But sometimes that is not longing, it is outsourcing. Proverbs gives a sharp warning about the heart that chooses isolation. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. Proverbs 18-1. Isolation is not always physical. A man can be married and still isolated if he refuses counsel, correction, confession, and emotional honesty. He can share a bed and still hide his heart in a locked room. He can have a woman in the house and still live like a sealed city. That is why the truth must be said carefully. A woman may interrupt a man's loneliness, but she cannot automatically transform his character. If he has learned to avoid responsibility, her presence may become another place to hide. If he has never faced his anger, her closeness may expose it. If he has built his identity on control, her needs may feel like a threat. If he has never learned tenderness, love may feel like an invasion. This is not to accuse men. It is to tell the truth with mercy. Many men were never taught how to name pain without feeling ashamed. They were taught to provide, perform, solve, protect, and endure. But they were not always taught how to confess, how to listen, how to apologize without defending themselves, how to sit with another person's tears without reaching for control. I think many lonely men are not actually afraid of women. They are afraid of what closeness will expose. Jesus said, "Everyone who does wicked things hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his works should be exposed." John 3:20. That exposure is not only about public sin. It is also about the hidden patterns we protect. Selfishness, fear, bitterness, emotional laziness, old wounds dressed up as wisdom. A healthy woman is not a shelter for a man's immaturity. She cannot become home for a man who refuses to open the rooms inside him. She is not called to be the emotional priest of a man who refuses to kneel before God himself. If a man wants love but rejects the light, he will eventually treat closeness as pressure and honesty as attack. The goal is not to become less alone by using another person. The goal is to become more truthful before God, whether love arrives or not. So, before he asks why no woman stays, he may need to ask a harder question. What part of me only feels safe when no one can see it? Truth 4. The quiet room can become holy when it is offered to God. Not every man who lives alone is avoiding life. Some are being formed in a hidden place. There are seasons when the quiet room becomes a workshop of the soul, where God removes noise, appetite, performance, and distraction so a man can finally hear what has been buried under motion. The Bible gives dignity to holy aloneness. Moses spent years in the wilderness before returning to Egypt. Elijah heard God not in the wind, earthquake, or fire, but in a low whisper. John the Baptist grew in the wilderness before appearing with a word that shook a nation. Jesus himself withdrew to desolate places to pray. Luke 5:16. Solitude, when surrendered, can become a place where false selves die quietly. But holy aloneness has fruit. A man who is alone with God does not become colder. He becomes clearer. He does not become contemptuous toward women or suspicious of everyone's needs. He becomes more humble, more disciplined, more attentive, more capable of love without desperation. His room may be quiet, but it is not spiritually stale. There is prayer there. There is repentance. There is scripture opened not as decoration, but as bread. You can almost see the difference. One man lives alone, and his sink fills with dishes. His temper shortens. His mind feeds on resentment, and his evenings become a slow drift into numbness. Another man lives alone and learns to cook a simple meal with gratitude, to wash the plate without self-pity, to kneel beside his bed without performing for anyone, to ask God for a cleaner heart before asking for a changed circumstance. The difference is not the apartment. It is what the man allows the empty space to do. One man uses it to feed resentment. The other lets it expose what he has been avoiding then brings that exposure before God without decorating it. That is the altar. Psalm 139, 23-24 gives him the prayer, "Search me, O God, and know my heart, and lead me in the way everlasting." That is what turns being alone into formation. Not leave me alone. Not prove everyone wrong. Not send someone to fix me, but search me. A man who can let God search him in the hidden season becomes safer in companionship. He is less likely to demand that a woman carry the weight of his unprocessed emptiness. He learns to meet God before he tries to meet another person. He becomes less hungry for someone to validate him and more willing to love from a steadier place. There is a table in the wilderness too. God can feed a man there. But if the wilderness is truly from God, it will not make him proud of being unreachable. If he cannot be interrupted, corrected, or called back by anyone, then his quiet may no longer be holy. It may only be isolation with religious language. A holy hidden season prepares him to return with a cleaner spirit. Truth 5. Private habits do not stay private forever. A house reveals a man in small ways. The way he speaks when no one is recording. The way he handles frustration when there is no witness. The way he treats the delivery worker, the old neighbor, the family member who calls too often. The way he uses his time when the day has no soft interruption. The way he carries desire when there is no covenant to discipline it. Living alone removes many social mirrors. That can be dangerous, because character often decays first in private. A man may look calm in public while becoming careless in hidden habits. He may be generous outside and bitter inside. He may speak of faith on Sunday while allowing his imagination to wander through places that make him less tender, less honest, less able to love. Paul wrote, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind." Romans 12:2. For a man living alone, the mind becomes a battlefield with fewer interruptions. What he watches, rehearses, resents, and excuses begins shaping him quietly. No one may see the pattern at first, but eventually the private life leaks into the voice, the eyes, the patience, the way he responds when love asks something from him. A man's hidden habits do not stay hidden forever. They return as tone of voice, as impatience, as suspicion, as the strange inability to receive love without controlling it. The bitterness he fed in the dark will not stay quiet. It will demand a seat at the table. The contempt he laughed at in secret will distort the face of the woman standing in front of him. And the fantasy he never surrendered, it will make real, ordinary love feel like a prison. This is why a man's private life must be governed by more than preference. It needs rhythm, prayer, work, rest, friendship, service, confession, real community. The Christian life was never meant to be lived as a private spirituality with occasional public attendance. The early church broke bread, prayed, shared burdens, corrected one another, and lived as a body. A severed limb does not become stronger by proving it can survive alone. There is also a particular danger in letting loneliness turn into contempt. Some men begin by feeling unwanted, but if that wound is not brought before God, it can harden into judgment. They start speaking of women with suspicion, mockery, or bitterness. They reduce women to problems, prizes, temptations, or threats. That is not wisdom. It is pain looking for a philosophy. The Bible commands men to treat women with honor, purity, and dignity, not as objects of blame or rescue. Paul tells Timothy to treat younger women as sisters in all purity. 1 Timothy 5:2. That one phrase can cleanse a man's imagination if he lets it. Sister, not enemy, not possession, not cure, not fantasy. A person made in the image of God. So the truth about a man who lives alone is not only whether he is lonely, it is whether his private life is making him more Christ-like or more curved inward. The room is teaching him something every day. The question is whether he is paying attention. Truth 6. The deeper question is not woman or no woman, but covenant or escape. At the center of this whole issue is a question deeper than dating, marriage, or singleness. Is the man living under covenant, or is he living in escape? A covenant life is not simply a married life. A single man can live covenantally before God with integrity, service, chastity, friendship, prayer, and purpose. A married man can live selfishly, using the appearance of commitment while still escaping the deeper call to love. The outer status does not tell the whole truth. The inner posture does. Covenant means a man's life is answerable to God. His body is not random. His time is not meaningless. His emotions are not allowed to rule without examination. His strength is not for self-protection only. His home, whether shared or solitary, becomes a place where God has authority. Escape is different. Escape says, I will arrange my life so nothing requires too much from me. Escape avoids the conversations that demand humility. It avoids the people who might challenge hidden patterns. It avoids the vulnerability of being needed and the responsibility of needing others. It may even use spiritual language to justify emotional distance. Jesus said, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Luke 9:23. That is not only for dramatic moments of sacrifice. Sometimes, the cross is found in the ordinary places where a man must stop protecting his false peace, returning the call, admitting he was harsh, asking for counsel, closing the door on a habit that is weakening him, letting a trusted friend know he is not as fine as he looks. For some men, obedience may mean preparing for marriage with humility instead of fantasy. For others, it may mean honoring a season of singleness without bitterness. For others, it may mean rebuilding friendship, joining community, serving quietly, or letting God restore a heart that has learned to live braced for disappointment. A woman is not the final answer to a man's aloneness. God is, but God often heals aloneness through embodied love. Friendship, brotherhood, church, family, and sometimes marriage. The answer is not to worship independence or worship romance. The answer is to stop using either one as a hiding place. The man who lives alone without a woman stands at a crossroads. He can become a locked house, clean but airless, safe but untouched. Or he can become a consecrated room, simple and honest, with windows open to God, community, and the possibility of love when love is given by grace. Final truth. Ask the empty chair what it has been teaching you. Before you leave this, look at the empty chair in your own life. Do not curse it. Do not worship it. Do not rush to fill it just because silence makes you uncomfortable. Ask what it has been teaching you. Put one hand on the table. Feel the wood, the cool surface, the quiet of the room around you. Then tell the truth before God. If being alone has made you bitter, name it. If the quiet has made you numb, name it. If the empty space has protected you from pain, but also trained you to fear love, Name that too. And if this is a holy season, do not waste it. Let God form you there. Let Him make you gentle without making you desperate, strong without making you hard, disciplined without making you unreachable. One day, someone may sit across from you, or the chair may remain empty longer than you expected. But either way, do not become a man who can only live when someone else completes the room. Become a man whose room already belongs to God. Because an honest room with God is safer than a full room built on hiding. If this is the prayer your room has been waiting for, write it quietly in the comments. Lord, make my solitude honest.